Hi, it's Lilian, and we're meeting again for a new lore video that will mainly serve as a reminder, since most of the things I'm going to say have already been presented in episode 1 about the tower, or have been seen directly in the webtoon, even if there will be a little bit of non-canon lore towards the end. Anyway, we'll talk about the different floors of the tower. As a reminder, almost the entire plot of Tower of God takes place in the tower. We know that the tower is at least 135 floors high because the access to the 135th floor is blocked, and so everyone is stuck on the 134th floor. However, since no one has gone beyond, we don't know how many floors the tower has in total. No one has ever reached it, so we don't know what's there. But it is said that the person who reaches the top will find everything he or she wants. But in short, these floors are divided into 3 parts. The outer tower, where most regulars come from, and whose surface area is equal to that of the American continent. The inner tower, where regulars gather to take tests, and the intermediate tower, whose surface area varies, but remains smaller than that of the outer tower. It serves as a sort of bridge between the internal and external towers, and many regulars and rankers are constantly in transit. The floors are headed by a governor, who is a high ranker belonging in almost all cases to one of the 10 great families, and who looks after the floor while obeying the will of the floor administrator, who is in a way the god of the floor. In addition, there are rivalries between the big families about the control of the floors in order to gain influence. For example, we know from the non-canon lore that the IA family controls floors 78, 79, 91, 92, 93 and 95 to 100, and that they are in rivalry with the Kun family, especially for the control of floors 80 to 90. There is also, as you know, a much larger world outside the tower, but we know almost nothing about it, except if you're interested in the Tulse user story. But be patient, the video will come one day. But anyway, I already talked about all this in detail in the first episode about the tower, so I'll refer you to it for more info. Please note that SIU doesn't aim to show all the floors of the tower, and that many floors will be skipped simply because they have no importance for the plot. Others will just be mentioned quickly, or will have a very brief appearance during 1 or 2 chapters, while others can be seen during several dozens of chapters if an arc is focused on them. The first floor, also called Hedon's floor, is a rather special floor since no regulars set foot on it. Indeed, when a regular is chosen by Hedon, he is directly sent to the second floor. One can say that in a way, the test of the first floor for the regulars is the fact of being chosen or not by Hedon. But then, only irregulars have to pass the first floor test, which is a difficult test since it is an administrator test. Note also that this floor is completely empty of life. There is no governor and not even human beings either, its only occupant is Hedon. Finally, SIU had said in a Q&A back in 2010 that the walls of the first floor were foreshadowing of the entire Tower of God story. The second floor, also known as the Evankel Hell, or the test floor, is where all the new regulars freshly chosen by Hedon gather to take the first tests of the tower. While the stated purpose of this floor is to test the regulars in order to select only the best, its real purpose is to maintain the safety of the tower. Indeed, after the appearance of Phantominium and the carnage it caused in the castle of Jahad, the whole tower was shocked and the irregulars became a symbol of immense fear. And the arrival of Urek Mazino right afterwards also completely upset the balance of power in the tower with the appearance of a new and very powerful group, the Wolhaiksong. Fortunately, Urek and the group he created with Bekriun remain more or less peaceful and do not take sides. But the fear of the arrival of a new irregular, who might be more hostile to the Jahad Empire, has pushed them to take action. That is why the real purpose of the second floor tests is in truth to detect new irregulars, or even regulars that may disrupt Jahad's empire in the future, and eliminate them directly, without giving them a chance to grow and gain power or influence. By the way, the second floor is the only floor where all regulars who fail the tests are expelled from the inner tower, the only ones where you only get one chance. A notable area on the second floor is what is called the Wine Glass. This is where the administrator's test will take place at the end of Season 1. It is a huge underground lake shaped like a wine glass. We will learn later in the 43rd chapter of the Season 2 that the liquid inside the wine glass was in fact a special liquid, and that it allows in particular to boost the manipulation of the Shinsu, as we could see with the big attack that Baum took out to protect Rachel of the Bull, whereas his mastery of the Shinsu was very basic at the time, or to make extremely big the Shinhe which are inside. Moreover, there is a red light in this liquid that will turn Baum into a living ignition weapon in the same way as with Kasano and Horyang, and we will understand later that this red light is none other than the demon that is found inside Baum, and that will emerge little by little after Baum has obtained the first fragment of the thorn. The floor is ruled by its administrator, the thing that looks like a giant eel there, and by its governor, whom we don't know at the moment. At the beginning, the second floor was governed by a member of the 10 great families, whose symbol can be seen in Season 1, but he was killed by Evankel, who took his place by force. Then, during the arc of the last station, Evankel and Hansung Yu, who was the director of the test by the way, were fired by the administrator who teleported them to the dimension where the heart of Karaka is. Since then, it is not known who replaced Evankel as governor. As for the sequel, we will not see floors 3 to 19, which will be eclipsed by an ellipse of 5 years. The 20th floor is a very important floor of the tower symbolically, since it is from here that regulars can move into the intermediate tower or middle area. From this floor on, the tests become much harder, and many regulars find themselves stuck on this floor, accumulating debts to pay the fees necessary to pass the tests again, as we saw with Wang Nan. Because of the large number of regulars attempting to pass the tests, and the small number who do, this floor is also known as the needle hole in the sky. Regulars who pass the tests on this floor become E-rank regulars. We have not seen the administrator of this floor, nor do we know its governor, but he must belong to one of the 10 great families that this symbol corresponds to, which will be found several times on this floor. Augustus was the former director of testing on this floor, but he gave up his position to help Baum in the nest. The 21st floor, also called the White Cichlid floor, is a floor run by the Yon family. It is likely that the White Cichlids is the name of a Shinhu from elsewhere. We don't know who the governor is, but he is probably a Yon. Note by the way that Cichlide, which is a species of fish, is the nickname of Yon Hana, the head of the Yon family. We can see at one point a statue of what is perhaps the governor of the floor, since we know that the inhabitants of the floors often build altars or statues to honor the governor or his family in general. The symbol of the Yon family is really omnipresent. In terms of environment, most of the people seem to live in the air, in large floating islands, and we also know that there is a sea near the edge of the inner tower. It is there that Bam and the team of Wang Nan will try to recover the baby Zigena by entering an adult Zigena, and will finally fall on Urek, who came to recover it according to the request of Yuri, who wanted to give it to Jaina Repalista, so that she tells him where Bam is. Funny. We don't know what Repalista will do with this baby Zigena, but what is sure is that it will be a source of tension for the Yon family, because the Yon controlled the reproduction of Zigena. Indeed, there are jewels that can be found in the middle of the flower that grows on the head of the baby Zigena, and by controlling the number of baby Zigena, the Yon kept a high value to the sale of this jewel, thanks to its rarity. Now, if she wants, Repalista can transform the symbolic jewel of the Yon into an ordinary jewel that will be found in abundance in the tower. Anyway, I'm not going to give you a summary of the arc either, but it was just a little reminder because I imagine that not many people remember all this. Also note that the floor administrator makes a mini appearance during the discussion between Karaka and Jinsung by pressuring them to get out of the regulars area. Floors 22, 23 and 24 will not be shown. The 25th floor is a floor in which the houses seem to float in the sky, on the clouds. You can also find large structures like cafes. In this sea of clouds you can find Shinhu that live there, like fish, like flying whales for example. The regulars use these Shinhu as a means of transport to go from one structure to another, especially thanks to the species of flying seals that we see several times. However, the floor is not made only of this sea of clouds, since we can also find lands there. It is on this floor that Kun will recruit the scout Eden Dan in his team, but also the moment where we learn that Kun knows that Rachel betrayed them, and where he explains to his team to be wary of her, without knowing that 2 of his members are on Rachel's side. Floors 26 and 27 will not be shown. The 28th floor is a floor in which the regulars live in a large blue tower for the most part, inside which one can find rather modern equipment. But the regulars, being a little out of the way for various reasons, find themselves in slums like the tent city where they live as best they can. There you can find steep wastelands and the remains of a statue that people call the Hand of Arlen. But there are also places full of greenery like the place where Wang Nan's team takes the test. On this floor, we saw the Wang Nan team win against Chang Blaroda's team and the whole storyline that took place in the Hand of Arlen. About the Hand of Arlen, it is the remains of an ancient gigantic statue that was broken a long time ago. It had become a haven for criminals, but was later cleaned up by the authorities and is now deserted. As a result, it is full of all kinds of traps. After reading Garam's revelations in the Ark of the Death floor, we understand that this statue was an ancient statue of Arlen Grace that was destroyed during the purge that Jahad organized, in order to make his existence disappear from history, and of which only the hand remains, the Hand of Arlen. It should also be noted that inside the hand of Arlen, there was another human female statue, and therefore perhaps another representation of Arlen Grace. In any case, these remains will be destroyed at the end of the arc of the demon with the right arm by a bomb set off by Xiaxia. Note also that Arlen's hand is a reference to a statue in Korea called the Hand of Harmony. The 29th floor is a floor from which we haven't seen much except coniferous forests. This is the floor where Kun's team passed the cannon test in which Eden Dan was able to demonstrate his speed, but it is also where Rachel, Apple and Michael will betray Kun's team, Gyetang will be poisoned by Michael and Rachel will butcher Dan's legs. It is also where Kun will meet Hua Ryun for the first time since the second floor, and she will explain to him that Bam is forced to join the FUG. On the 30th floor, in the intermediate tower, or middle area, there is one of the 7 headquarters of the workshop, the Archimedes, one of the 5 big floating boats of the workshop. By the way, for the record, one of these 5 great floating ships exists only in legends, according to Kun. Every 5 years the so-called Battle of the Workshop takes place there, a competition between E-rank regulars, where exclusive workshop items can be found as a reward. The Archimedes will first start from Sepia Island, considered one of the most beautiful places in the middle area of the 30th floor, and where the game One Shot, One Opportunity will take place in the Battle of the Workshop arc, and where Bam will meet the Traveler, a man who is attracted by Emily, and who is actually Endorsi's prisoner. Most of the revenue of this floor comes from tourism, as its coastal areas are full of a wide variety of hotels where regulars and others can come for a vacation. Then, to return to the Archimedes, also known as Archie to Intimates, it should be noted that it is known to be very beautiful, despite its enormous size, and that all the floating ships that regulars can meet in the previous floors seem tiny in comparison. It has 2 gigantic suspendium stones that allow it to float, thanks to a kind of luminous ring that surrounds these 2 stones and seems to be connected to the central ring of the floating boat, even if we don't have any details on its exact functioning. There is also connected by an anchor to the back of the Archimedes, the giant container in which is the special solution to dissolve Bam with the thorn. Inside the Archimedes, everything is free except the purchase of items. The interior is divided into 4 floors and other special places. On the first floor you can find parks with fountains, etc. On the second floor you will find all the entertainment like a water park, but also the residences for the regulars who participate in the tournament, luxury hotels, restaurants, etc. On this floor you will also find the prison in which intruders, such as the Traveler, will be locked up and the main control room of the Archimedes. On the third floor there are all the stores where the public can buy the objects created by the workshop. There is, for example, the Acorn Workshop, a store where Hats wanted to buy a new sword, or the place where the party took place after the first part of the tournament, and where the regulars were entitled to a concert of Daft Punk. There is also Dr. Sophia Amai's laboratory and Beta's medical treatment room. On the 4th floor, we can find the big arena in which the first tests of the Battle of the Workshop will take place, as well as VIP rooms like the one in which Pobi Dao Gustang was. And finally there is the room of Emily, whose exact floor is not known. The last trial of the Battle of the Workshop will take place on an island that will be called the Central Island, and in which was the thorn and a kind of crater, in which will be poured the solution to dissolve Bam with the thorn. There is also an abandoned castle on an island not far from Archimedes, where Kasano and the Traveler will find Rachel and the members of the FUG who accompany her in the epilogue of the Battle of the Workshop, and a complex belonging to the Volhaixong, where the team of Wang Nan, Ran and Shibisu will flee and reunite at the end of the Battle of the Workshop, and where Bam will have his date with Endosi. When the regulars have passed the test on the 30th floor, they become a D-rank regular. After that, there will be a 1-year ellipsis, and floors 31 to 34 will not be shown. The 35th floor is a floor that we will not see much in itself, but where we will find a place where we will spend a lot of time in the plot, Train City. Train City is the very first station of the Hell Train, the one from which it starts. This station is divided into 7 floors in all. There is the -1 floor, which is the platform where the trains that lead to Train City arrive. Then there is the first floor, called the Entrance, which is the place that leads to the spiral staircase that allows access to the train, and that is blocked by the Merotic Guardian until the moment the train is boarded. Then, on the second floor, there are the residences where the ticket holders gather according to the number of their ticket, which serves as a key to open the room of the corresponding number. On the third floor there are the restaurants. There is a secret path from the restaurants that leads to the actual control area of Train City. On the 4th floor, there is the stadium where the ticket tournament will take place, which will be just a trap to take control of the train. On the 5th floor, there is the control room from which the Train City events are organized. Inside there is an elevator that leads directly to the 6th floor. And the 6th floor then, the rooftop, is the place that serves as the boarding platform for the Hell train. It can be reached either by the elevator from the control room or by the spiral staircase that connects the ground floor, guarded by the guard Mirotic, to the 5th floor. Note that there seems to be a fake rooftop and a fake control room through which you access with the normal elevator, as shown in the image of the Fontrad where the bubbles are less big. Oh, and if the number of floors is shifted in the English translation, it's because in English-speaking countries, the ground floor is considered as the 1st floor. Note also that Baam, Kun, Rak, Chang, Akraptor, Prince, Quetro, and Miseng will have to pass the 35th floor test after having missed the departure of the Hell train. And before we go on with the floors, we have to talk a little about the Hell train because it's inside that we'll spend a huge part of the story and through which the regulars will go from floor 35 to floor 44. The Hell train is a kind of shortcut to climb the tower more quickly and also allows access to the legendary hidden floor. The origin of this train comes from the time of the Great Journey. Indeed, during the ascent of the tower by Jihad and his companions, the workshop created the Hell train in order to help them by training them, especially with the god of the Guardians and the revolution that he made them do in the rice pot. This is why the Hell train is also called the Road of Revolution. Also note, for the record, that the reason the god of the Guardians speaks of Jihad and the 10 heads of the great families, and not of V and Arlen Grace, is because his memory was altered by Jihad when he wanted to erase all traces of them from history. To enter the train, you have to go to one of the stations it passes through, from floor 35 to 43, having one of the 100 tickets. Also note the existence of boarding passes that allow you to enter the Hell train, but without being able to pass the tests in it. Once inside, the train has a day-night cycle. During the day, the train is quite quiet, there are almost no enemies, but at night they are everywhere. Moreover, the paths also change according to the day-night cycle. And if all the paths lead to the test allowing to go to the next floor, the number of different paths to get there is huge. Because yes, you will have to take a test every time the train passes a floor, which will replace the usual tests that regulars take to climb the tower. Moreover, in order to reach these tests faster and receive various rewards, you can defeat the guards in certain rooms, such as Bloomer, Joachim, etc. The train is managed by an administrator and a conductor. In the saga of the Hell train, the administrator of the train was Pedro and the driver was Poropo. The stations where the Hell train arrives are a kind of refuge for the regulars, because the rankers are not allowed to interfere in the affairs of the train. So these stations become in a way completely independent cities from the rankers, for better or for worse. The 36th floor was not seen very much because it was only shown when the BAM team passed the test in order to access the 37th floor. We will see the floating boat Deokia, and it is also on this floor that we will meet a regular of the same species as Yaxia. It also seems that seafood is the specialty of this floor. We can also see on this floor the door leading to the 37th floor when BAM's team runs away after Hajinsung tried to stop them. We don't know much about the 37th floor either, except that it seems to be rather hot there, and that there is the second station, where the Hell train stops, the wooden horse. When the train stops there, it stays there for 1 hour. The first 30 minutes are dedicated to the passengers of the train who want to get off, while the last 30 minutes are reserved to those who want to get on board. The 38th floor being climbed only inside the train, we will not see it. Almost nothing is known about the 39th floor itself, except that it is controlled by the Lopobia family, and that there is the third station where the Hell train stops, the Name Hunt station. This station was created in memory of a bet between the inhabitants of this floor and Jihad and his companions during their ascent, where their names were put at stake. In this station, by placing your hands for 10 seconds on your opponent's back, you can steal his name and thus get back for yourself everything that person has. The people whose names have been stolen will then end up in the residence of the nameless where they will be stuck. But a person who has stolen names can also name a nameless person by taking one of the names in his possession. This person will have to obey to the person who gave him this name, but he can also steal other names himself and create other subordinates, which creates a kind of pyramid slavery system where we find, at the top of the pyramid, the 10 bosses and their leader, Kaiser. This, in the end, is a bit of an allegory of Jihad's empire with Jihad at the top and the heads of the 10 great families. If you want to fight Kaiser, you'll have to get the names of the 10 bosses first and then fight Kaiser at the festival, unless Kaiser herself has decided to fight the person. Otherwise, if someone attacks Kaiser, he will be instantly destroyed by the floor administrator. The names stolen from the Name Hunt station will then be auctioned off in what is known as the festival, an event that allows you to become the owner of the regulars, whose names were stolen by buying them back. This is something that the 10 great families routinely do for their own children. Moreover, the real purpose of this station is to discreetly stop the rise of the troublesome regulars for the 10 great families by stealing their names and imprisoning them in the name hunt station, or by buying back their names during the festival. After Bam's, Ran's and Shibisu's team passed through, all 10 bosses and Kaiser were defeated. 3 unknown bosses were defeated by Shibisu's team, Yukan was defeated by Bam, Variel Vani was defeated by Hua Ryun and others, Lulu was defeated by Sachifaka and his allies. Hesse was killed by Ran, who also killed Aria Inieta, Marte was killed by Endorsi, and finally, Afin was defeated by Bam and will replace Lopo Bia Elaine in the role of Kaiser, as the latter will be defeated by Bam, who will redeem her name through Hajinsung. On the 40th floor is the 4th station where the Hell train stops, the Mushroom Farm. Very few regulars go to this station because of the mushroom spores that cause severe coughing. You can also see a small floating castle. This is the station where David Hockney was before he joined the BAM team. We will not see floor 41 because there is no station in which the train stops. On the 42nd floor is the 5th station where the Hell train stops, the Black Mountain. This is a very high mountain with the station at the top. Many ordinary regulars give up trying to get on the train because of the difficulty of climbing the mountain, but the best ones try, since the train is a much faster way to get across the 43rd floor than the traditional way. The 43rd floor of the tower, also known as the Floor of Death, is the 6th and penultimate station to be visited by the Hell train, although there isn't really a station as such, since you have to jump off the train. The Floor of Death is the only floor of the tower without an administrator since Enryu killed him, as you all already know. This floor has therefore become a dangerous place where the laws of the tower no longer exist. This is why it has also become a refuge for Jahad's criminals and enemies, such as Garam. As a result, even rankers don't dare approach this place, and it's forbidden by the Empire to all Jahad princesses. The 43rd floor is also where Arlen, Grace and Vi fled after the war they lost to Jahad. It's also where Bam was born and raised, before Jahad came to kill him before Arlen's eyes and turned the floor into a shrine to himself and his followers, who came here on pilgrimage. That is, until Enryu broke it all down. After Enryu's passage, most of the people on the premises, and even the most powerful rankers who had survived, had to cope with the lack of shinsu, food and aging. What's more, after rumors spread about Enryu's actions and the thorn he left behind, the Jahad family sent an army to block the entrances and exits to the floor, killing anyone who tried to leave, in order to stop the rumors spreading. To stop this, Grandesa and Grandeja used their magic with the help of Gustang to create the Spirit Chamber, to store the souls of all the floor's inhabitants, making them immortal, but preventing them from leaving the floor. But not everyone was happy with this situation, especially Helljo, who rebelled and took control of South City after locking up Grandesa and his son. North City remained under Grandeja's control, thanks in part to his eyes, which allowed him to see into the future, before he gave them to Hockney, and also thanks to Garam. Meanwhile, Helljo exchanges fragments of the thorn in exchange for the promise of a way out of the floor. Geographically speaking, we need to separate the center of the Floor of Death, where the administrator's body rests and where all the ark's intrigue will take place, which is often called the true Floor of Death, and the rest of the floor, which is unknown to us, and of which we only know that there is a place of pilgrimage for the Silver Dwarfs. In the center of the floor is the Sea of Blood, an area covered in red shinsu that hides the real Floor of Death. Below is North City, ruled by Grand Deli, accompanied by Grandeja, as well as the Spirit Chamber. South City and the Red Castle used to belong to Helljo, but was defeated and is now probably run by Grandesa again, or his son. There's also the village of Calculus, the secret village of the Red Witches. Moreover, since all these locations are inside the administrator's corpse, the environments have similarities with the inside of a body. This is also why SIU has placed numerous giant insects to prevent outsiders from entering, as it is a giant corpse in which many insects swarm. This is also why the system for adjusting the shinsu is similar to blood vessels. Note also that, in the absence of an administrator, anyone can use shinsu without a contract, but their abilities are diminished by the low concentration of shinsu, and there is no test to pass to the next floor, so regulars probably go through the intermediate tower to get to the next floor. Long ago, Jahad, who had just made his revolution on the Hell train, had sensed that he would become a godlike entity and wanted to leave a trace of his current self, the one that was still human. One of the disciples of the workshop had heard of his concerns and offered him an object, the mirror that contemplates the past. This mirror had the ability to preserve a person's present, so Jahad looked at his reflection in the mirror, which then copied his appearance. He then saw his present self in a world inside the mirror. After hearing about this, his companions also left their appearance in the mirror, and in order to show these past appearances to the passengers of the train, he hid the mirror in the last room of the hell train. Then, when Jahad had become king, the disciple of the workshop who had created the mirror returned to the train and saw that the recorded data of Jahad and those who had completed the train lived in that mirror and had created a world just for them. In order to protect this world, the disciple created a forgetting spell that erased the memories of all who spoke of it, and created a door to enter this world and 2 keys to open it, which were given to Jahad and the train administrator. Jahad found this story fascinating and named this place the Hidden Floor. The Hidden Floor is an artificial world made up entirely of data, where artificial intelligences live, which are either pure creations or data from regulars who have reached the Hidden Floor. But after a while, Jahad and his companions got tired of seeing the number of regulars increase, and created the Hidden Floor to separate themselves from them, thanks to an external help that brought them a second mirror reflecting the first one, making the classic Hidden Floor a world of data in the world of data that is the Hidden Floor. By the way, these 2 mirrors are the mirror of the past and the mirror of the end. He then gave the big breeder the task of administering the normal Hidden Floor, where the regulars arrive, in order to guide them to fake quests to keep them at bay, including creating minstrels like Rose or Batis, who are sort of NPCs that the big breeder control as they want. Thus, the regulars will be given a gauge of good and evil, and the more false quests they do, the more the good gauge will fill up, and they will be able to access the next level to continue the false quests. On the other hand, the more they oppose the big breeders, the more the evil gauge will fill up, and when it is filled, they will access the real quests in the hidden levels. Also, it is worth noting the existence of the quarantine area, which serves as a prison for dangerous new regulars like BAM, or for troublesome data. There are many levels in the Hidden Floor. We know level 1, the Village of the Wandering Minstrels, level 2, the Icy Expanse, the Hidden level 2, the Sweet Red Castle, level 3, the Rough Expanse, a hidden level whose number we don't know, and which is the place where Kunedan's datum lived, the Palace of the Spears. Level 7, the Labyrinth of the Bull, a level whose number we don't know, the Village of the Golden Dome, where Baam met for the first time the data of Jahad, the training level where Kun Edan will teach the others to find the form and the property of their Shinsu. I take the opportunity to tell you that the official translation chose to translate what I called quality in the lore video on the Shinsu by property. And finally the final level, the 21, where the mirror of the end is located and which is called the Seed. Note also that there is also the bug room in which was the bugged data of Urek Mazino, and a special room called the King's Cradle, in which was the sword that Wang Nan used to save everyone in exchange for the promise to kill someone. The 44th floor is a floor belonging to the Kun family, whose governor is Kun Royal Elliot, and in which is located the 7th and last station where the Hell train stops. This station is managed by Li Xiaowun and his 2 adopted children, Li Soyong and Li Soa. It is divided into 2 floating structures. The first one is called the Mega Dome, and the second one is called the Sawfish, where the train will stop. In this station, the regulars are welcomed in great luxury in order to relieve them after they have survived the Hell train. This is where the last station arc will take place and where season 2 will conclude. After that, we'll have several ellipses, so we won't see floors 45 to 48. There is not much to say about the 49th floor except that it seems to have quite dusty environments in the intermediate tower, and that different tribes like the Duni or the Kukum live there, and have languages that are visibly not translated by the pockets. It is also on this floor that Kun and Rak passed the test to go to floor 50 and become a C rank regular. The 50th floor is one of the floors belonging to the Lopobia family, and you can currently find one of its bases, the Nest. Well, I had made a video in French at the time before the return of SIU after its long break of almost a year, where I made a summary of the ongoing plots of this arc, and where I talked about the structure of the Nest, so I did not talk about it in this video. I won't translate that video because it doesn't really matter anymore, but there will be a video explaining the Nest arc where I'll come back to it, so it's the same in the end. This video is already long enough. Anyway, this is also where one of the offices of the Ranking Administration Office is located, where Baam faced and defeated Pan the Test Ranker just before the Nest arc. In any case, this is the floor where the plot is taking place right now with the Nest arc. Not much is known about the 51st floor either, except that it contains one of the Wall of Peace and Coexistence, a wall symbolizing the Age of Coexistence, and where former Fug War heroes who fought against the forces of the Jahad Empire during the Age of Genesis are locked up. See the lore video on the history of the tower for more details. The wall on the 51st floor is where Dowon was locked up and is under the control of the Peach Blossom Country, otherwise known as Dowa, which is part of the 5 Flower Nations, an alliance of 5 countries opposed to Jihad in Genesis. This is where Team Rakunbam will face Dalit, and where Calavan will free Dowon. Just like the 51st floor, the main thing we know about it is that it is the location of the other Wall of Peace and Coexistence, the one in which Char was locked up and which is run by the Peace Council, an organization headed by Kal Rahim, and whose official purpose is to preserve the wall, but which was also affiliated with the Fug since Kal Rahim cooperated with Kel Helam. This is also the floor where Calavan was with the 4th Corps of the Jihad army before heading to the last station. This floor was also where the cage was located, which was the lair of Fug Slayer number 7, Baylod Yama. The cage is a huge floating castle where the members of the K9 people live together. It is like a huge floating city in fact, with roads and buildings, sports halls, etc. The cage will be modified before the Nest arc to be able to defend itself, and will end up being destroyed by the self-destruction of Liberic's ship. The 52 floor is also the highest floor Baum has ever been on, so he still has 82 floors to climb before becoming a ranker. The 55th floor has been mentioned once so far as the entrance to the Nest, but since the Nest is on the 50th floor, it is not clear how its entrance can be on the 55th floor, except if there is a teleporter to enter the Nest from the 55th floor. So, it could be understood that the entrance to the Nest on the 55th floor would be next to one of the Lopo Bia family's bases. Anyway, I think we'll have the answer to this question soon enough. There are other floors that have been briefly glimpsed or mentioned in the non-canon lore, so we'll start with the 77th floor. The 77th floor used to belong to the Ariye family, but Ariye Hon gave it to Urek after he passed his test on the 100th floor. Since then, this floor has become the Volheksong HQ, with Baek Ryun as the governor. You can see Leroro and Quant going there, crossing the forest, which is surely the famous forest that Baek Ryun never leaves, and for all the other details about all this, I refer you to the lore video about the Volheksong. Floor 80 is the floor where Grace Mirkea Luslek was born, according to the non-canon lore, and therefore logically the floor from which he joined Jihad in his ascent of the tower. The 91st floor is one of the floors run by the Ariye family. Here in the intermediate tower, or middle area, you can find Hajinsung's house. It is here that he will fight against Masheni before going to the 44th floor to rescue Bam. The 97th floor is also a floor run by the Ariye family, and where you can find Karaka's secret lair, which Jinsung will pay a little visit to after the Battle of the Workshop arc. According to the non-canon lore, the 100th floor of the tower is ruled by Ariye Hon himself, and there is a special test that consists of resisting Ariye Hon's attacks for 10 minutes while staying alive. Only Urek Mazino and Ariye Hagiferioni Jihad passed this test, as Urek not only managed to resist Ariye Hon's attacks, but also to counterattack and match him. The latter asked for the 77th floor as a reward, and Hagiferioni a reward that would apparently be quite personal. Note also that, again according to the non-canon lore, after Jihad and his companions passed the 100th floor test, the administrator of the floor offered them immortality. With 2 exceptions. Hendolok Bloodmatter was only able to obtain immortality on one condition, that of condemning all his descendants to a short life. The second exception is V, who knowingly refused immortality. The 123rd floor is the floor in which Repelista Jihad's villa is located, in the intermediate tower. It is here that Repelista will give Yuri the information about Bam's presence in the Hell Train after Yuri gets the baby Zegina from him. Absolutely nothing is known about the 132nd floor except for one thing, the fact that, according to the non-canon lore, this is the floor where Adori Jahad, the commander-in-chief of the Jihad army, was born. Nothing is known about the 133rd floor either, except that the very last test of the tower for regulars takes place here, as it allows them to reach the last accessible floor of the tower and become a ranker. The 134th floor is the last floor of the tower conquered by Jihad. Jihad himself is the ruler of this floor. It is after conquering it that he decided to stop the ascent and become king. You can find more details about this in the video about the history of the tower. All regulars or irregulars who have reached this floor are considered rankers and enter the RAO ranking. The 135th floor is the last known floor of the tower. Nothing is known about this floor except that Jihad has blocked access to it and split the key, dividing it between the rings worn by the princes of the Red Light District and the weapons of the 13-month series. Still, there's a bit of non-canon lore about it. Apparently, the tower's inhabitants believe that Jihad will one day take over the tower's ascent. There are also rumors that the lord who currently rules the empire, Moloch 1 PGR, refuses to continue the ascent because he is rather conservative, and that when the lord changes, perhaps the conquest will resume. See the video on Jihad's empire to learn more about the three lords. Finally, it is said that the administrator of the 135th floor is extremely hostile, and that is the reason why no one has passed his test. But we now know that all of this is probably untrue, since it is Jihad who is voluntarily blocking the floor. But rather than seeing this as non-canon lore that has become obsolete, I prefer to see it as what the people think they know, since the propaganda of Jihad's empire prevents anyone from knowing the truth and surely propagates this kind of false information to justify the fact that the ascension will never resume. Finally, we don't know what lies beyond the 135th floor. And as I have said many times before, the 135th floor could be the last floor of the tower, just as there could be 10, 20 or 317 floors left. There is no way to know because so far, absolutely no one has reached the top of the Tower of God. That's it for this long video. In the end, this video will have served as a reminder of the path we've taken, but also to highlight the different environments that SIU creates, and that we tend to forget to remember, which is a pity because he's quite creative in that respect. Anyway, I hope you liked it and that it was not too long. You can like, comment, share, subscribe, put the bell, etc. And we'll meet again for the next lore video, which will be about the Shinhu and races who live in the tower.